Yeah, dude, you've been in that student mode for a couple of
Hmm.
years.
Yeah.
Get your ass back out there, buddy.
Start working.
8 hours. It's a full
Yeah.
day.
Whack. I
Yeah, it's
like it.
whack. I know. Yeah, I don't know. I love it personally.
Yeah.
Fits right into my routine,
Oh,
you
that's
know.
fair. We kind of built your routine around it, huh?
It's pretty much my main thing that I do.
I took a lease out on your heart. I took a lease out on your heart. Can I at least have fun? Can I at least have fun? Can I at least have fun?
Welcome back, everybody. We are Rough Draft Research. You are the audience, and together we are on a quest for Dynasty Domination. How's it going over there, Daniel?
Oh, going pretty good, man. As you can see, I've got my Vikings memorabilia on the wall. Doing a
This looks
little
familiar.
Yeah, I wanted to channel my inner RDR, so I went back to the original studio. It feels
Back to where
good.
it
It
all
feels like
started.
home. Yeah,
It
it does. A
does,
lot of
yeah.
purple. There's a lot of purple in here, but how about you, man? How are you doing, Christian?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Finished my semester, so no more homework. Back in Indy, so no more moving. Got some other stuff I got to deal with, but we're on the up and up and getting into the season. It's already almost July. We're almost here. Not almost, but kind of planning out my trips and games I want to go to. Yeah, I'm doing good, man. I'm feeling good.
You got a good energy, man. I'm into
Appreciate
that.
it. Thanks. Well, I should because tonight we are talking about I would argue, one of the top three most interesting divisions for the 2024 season.
Interesting
Um,
is a good word.
yeah, like maybe not the best, but I just see a lot of really, like there's a lot of question marks, but there's a lot of upside. I think these teams are fairly evenly matched in some places. We'll get into that going in because we're gonna start our divisional breakdown where we just go through the skill positions of all the divisions, and we're going to start in the AFC South today. So that is the Colts, Texans, Titans, and the Jaguars. So yeah, I mean, we're going to dive right into it. You have anything you want to get out there before we start?
Nope, just excited to be here.
Alrighty, sounds good. Well, I'll kick us off, and I'm gonna get us started with a team that should surprise no one when we're talking about this division. It's the Indianapolis Colts. Everybody knows I'm fairly high on the Colts. I like the way they draft. I think their team's gonna be really good. But this, I mean, it all comes down to Anthony Richardson and then the skill position around him. Obviously, the Colts last season ended the year with 574 passing attempts, which was 18th in the league. I don't really think it's going to go down that much with Richardson. Like in his two games where he played fully, he averaged about 31 passes, which would have ended, if you elongate that for the rest of the season, it would have been a 527. So you're talking about a little less than 50 passes difference, and that's if that average were to hold. And then if you look at Richardson, he had 84 attempts, right? Last season. 48 of those went to wide receivers, 25 of those went to tight ends, and 11 of those went to running backs. So fairly kind of wide receiver heavy, but the tight ends are not that far behind, I guess, in terms of like how many there are comparatively. But that is all to say, just like how I think this is going to be broken down. I don't think he's going to take as big of a step back in the passing numbers as people might think from Minshew to Richardson. I don't think Michael Pittman's going to get 156 targets like he did last year, but I'd wager he gets 120 plus. I don't think it's going to go down that far. And then Downs, he had like 98. I think that could drop, but I still see him being like a plus 75 target guy. Where I see the big drop in wide receivers coming is in Alec Pierce and the 65 targets that he had. I could see whoever that third is, and presumably it's going to be Adonai Mitchell, dropping to around 50. And I'll kind of get into why, because I think the tight end numbers are going to spike. Because if you look at the Colts, in terms of like by the end of the year, 59% of their targets went to wide receivers, 20% of their targets went to tight ends, and 14% went to running backs. But with Richardson, and obviously a much smaller scale, 57% were to wide receivers, but the tight ends jumped to 30%. And the running backs actually fell back a percentage, so they went down to 13. So I think the tight end is just going to be featured a little more in the offense with Richardson than it was with Gardner Minshew. And so I see that third wide receiver spot coming down pretty heavily to around that 50 target range. And then I see the tight end room kind of spiking up a little bit in terms of targets. And in terms of who's going to take over that room, like I, I know I'll pound the table over and over again, but like Jelani Woods,
Yeah.
all the reports are coming out of camp that he's the projected starter, that he's healthy, that it's his critical third season. And I mean, this guy, again, he was 6'7", ran a 4.61, and he had a college dominator rating of 34.6%, which was higher than Brock Bowers. Now, he played for Virginia, not the same. I get that, but I'm talking about a guy with a lot of upside, and Mo Alley Cox is getting older. And Kylan Granson is just the
Yeah.
guy, you know,
Nah,
like
he is the guy.
so maybe it's Granson, but whoever it is, and I'm gonna put my money on Woods, but regardless of who it is, I think that tight end spot for the Colts is going to be used a lot more, and I think that's a sneaky value you can get because all of these guys are going super late in drafts because nobody knows what's going on. In terms of Jonathan Taylor, I think it's worrying because Taylor doesn't have a tremendous amount of work in the receiving game anyway. His best season, he had 50 targets and he was good. Like he's good in the receiving game. I don't think he's going to get 50 targets. So I think he's in a PPR league. I think Taylor might be a little weaker than some of these other running backs because it seemed like when you watch Richardson's film, he goes deep a lot. He has a big arm and he tries to fit the ball downfield and doesn't really take as many checkdowns. I mean, like I said, 11 targets to RBs in his between his 4 games between all his passes, which isn't a lot. But for a team that was 11th in rushing attempts last season, I see that number going up. I see them cracking into the top 10 when you have Jonathan Taylor finally being out of the woods injury wise, contract wise, and all that stuff. And I think he returns to form. And then you have Richardson on the field, who's obviously going to rush as well. So I see him kind of making up for it potentially. But I'm a little worried about Jonathan Taylor in terms of Richardson stealing some touchdowns and and him potentially not catching a lot of passes.
Yeah, I mean, okay, all right. I'd be a little bit worried there. I'm worried too, or I would be if I hadn't sold him high.
Mm.
Danny, gotcha. But yeah, there are 183 carries that Zach Moss was responsible for. And I guess a healthy Jonathan Taylor should be able to step right into those. But he is coming back to back running back 33 seasons, so
Mhm.
not the best news. But what I'm hearing you tell me is that there's room for a pass catching running back on the squad to really come through and shine. So Evan Hall, if you're out there, it's time to do it. It's time to listen up, and it's a call to duty, dude. You got this. But I'm with you, man. Everything you said seems pretty much in line with what I would expect. 3 seasons in a row, over 120 targets for Michael Pittman Jr., like you're saying, and the competition is growing with Adonai Mitchell joining the team, but
Mhm.
it's not overpowering competition. It's just another person that needs to
Mhm.
do what other people haven't been able to do, not going to take the work away from Michael Pittman, in my opinion.
Mm-mm.
And like you're saying, Alec Pierce has been given plenty of opportunity, just hasn't done anything with it. And so the next guy up is going to be Mitchell, and he's going to get an opportunity to kick some ass. I do have to say, I like Josh Downs in his second year.
Mhm.
I think he's probably going to step up. He was the seventh best rookie receiver last year, which I thought was a little surprising. Finished as the wide receiver 43. So we'll see. But yeah, there's no like available targets on this team at all.
Mhm.
The only available workload is from Moss, and that's absorbed by a healthy Jonathan Taylor. So we'll see how it goes. I would say this is a mystery just because of we didn't see enough out of
Mhm.
Richardson to be able to project what this team ends up doing.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of variance with the Richardson. Obviously, I am a guy who is all in. I think he's going to be awesome, and I just love the way they've built that team. But yeah, there's a scenario where this goes poorly as well. The obvious bug is if Richardson goes down and gets hurt again, but he could just not be the guy that we saw. I'm taking the swing, and I'm saying that he will be, and I'm saying that I want pieces of this offense wherever I can get them.
Mhm.
Maybe not more than Josh Downs or Michael Pittman in the receiver room, and then
Yeah,
Russian
Jelani,
roulette.
baby.
Yeah, and then Jelani, but Russian roulette for whoever you think at tight end. I think it's Jelani. But yeah, I like the Colts, man. I think they're gonna be good. I think they're gonna compete really tough in this division. I think they'll make the playoffs. Um, and yeah, I'm in on them. I think they're gonna score a lot of points. So I'm
All
definitely
right.
in on Richardson.
Yeah, and I look for Taylor to bounce back in a big way too,
Yeah,
so
me
I'm
too.
excited about that. We'll just see who gets the goal line work between those two guys. It's going to be wild,
Yeah.
but we'll keep it in the AFC South and move on to let's jump into Jacksonville,
Hmm.
man, the Jaguars. So unlike the Colts, they had a little bit of movement go on their roster this past season. They're missing a few guys. Calvin Ridley no longer on the squad.
Hmm.
Zay Jones gone too. So there's quite a bit of work available between those two guys, around 200 targets. We'll see how that ends up panning out. We got some new additions to help absorb some of that. You got Gabe Davis coming in, and then you got Brian Thomas Jr. Pretty excited about that. Trevor Lawrence has got a big contract extension, so they're all in on him, and I don't see why you wouldn't be.
Hmm.
But so this team needs to keep doing some of the things they were doing. They're sixth in passing attempts last year and 17th in rushing attempts. And I'm not really sure how the running back room is going to pan out. It was Travis Etienne who was doing really well. He had 267 carries last year. And then you had Tank Bigsby and Dearness Johnson combined for 91 carries and 16 targets, which was it was like 20% of the team carries and 2.5% of the team targets. So I feel like there's an opportunity to get another running back involved. And then I do like Kellen Robinson quite a bit out of Texas, just as like a sleeper rookie running back to join this room. I think like Doug Peterson has definitely had a collection of running back by committee setups in the past,
Yeah.
with
Hmm.
nobody's really fighting over Wendell Smallwood or Corey Clement, but we all remember these names because they were involved in the run game. And I
Hmm.
don't think I know you and I weren't impressed by Bigsby, so I'm keeping like half an eye on Robinson. Um, but yeah, I
Makes
mean
sense.
Travis Etienne was the running back three last year, and I don't see that really going away. I think that they probably need to get better in the passing game, which is kind of weird. You're like, how are they going to get better? Calvin Ridley's gone and
Hmm.
Gabe Davis is in the house. But I'm here to tell you, man, I'm pretty pumped about Gabe Davis. I
Hmm.
know I know everybody, I do this. This is my thing. Gabe Davis. And the thing with Gabe Davis is he's always been like a one-trick pony
Hmm.
for Buffalo. And I think that he has the potential to be more than just what he's been. So he's been a great red zone target for them.
Hmm.
In his 4 years in the league, his red zone targets were 10, 17, 13, and 11. And some of those were like top 15 numbers in
Hmm.
there. 17 red zone targets is pretty great. So that's pretty good. It's like 17% of his total targets. That's pretty impressive. He catches about 50% of those, and he's replacing in Jacksonville, I guess, Calvin Ridley, maybe, perhaps.
Hmm.
And if you look at Calvin Ridley's 2023 season, he got 26 red zone targets, but he only caught nine of them.
Hmm.
And the struggles that Jacksonville had in the red zone were, I'm pretty obvious. I mean, to me, I saw them on a regular occasion, and I think Calvin Ridley's drops in the red zone or his inability to catch the ball in the end zone. It cost them a lot of games, man. He was only out targeted in the red zone by CeeDee Lamb and Devontae Adams last year. So that tells you
Damn.
anything, but he only got 9 of them. So
Yeah.
I think Gabe Davis, I mean, he's a more sure-handed red zone target than what Ridley was doing last year. I think this could really help the squad out, level up, and if they use him in more ways than just the way Buffalo was using him, I think he could be a pretty well-rounded wide receiver. And just to speak on red zone targets and what's going on with Jacksonville, so Zay Jones had 10 last year, and then Evan Ingram and Christian Kirk, who are still on the team, combined for only 14. So there is a big void there that can be made up with the guy that's been doing it, in and out for 4 years. So I'm a little bit excited about Gabe Davis again. This famous last words. I think I've said it more than a few times. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, he was a wide receiver 41 last year. That's the best he's ever done. Evan Ingram blew up. He was the tight end 2 last year. And I think, no one's expecting him to repeat that.
Hmm.
But we know the workload is there for him and he's going to be mopping it up. He led the team in targets with 143. That's better than Ridley by about 8. So opportunities there for him. Um, and then lastly, I wanted to talk about Parker Washington.
Mm.
I've been watching some OTA footage and he's looking pretty good out there, man. A lot more sure of his routes than like Brian Thomas Jr. Still, he's kind of, I don't know, he's not blown me away. And I know he's a rookie and he's out there for the
Hmm.
first time. But Parker Washington looks like a guy who's ready to get on the field and play some ball. So I don't know, man. I think there's a potential for there to be some really strong fantasy candidates here. Obviously, Trevor Lawrence, Travis Etienne, Evan Ingram, but I think the wide receiver room has potential to have some surprises in it. It's a lot of uncertainty at this point.
Yeah, I mean, and freshly paid Trevor Lawrence is going to be expected to make these guys click now, making
Got
55
to.
million a year. I
Yes.
still like we said a few weeks ago, I still think from a consistency angle, I think Kirk is going to be your guy in this offense. Just from the experience he has with Lawrence being the wide receiver 11 in 2022, and then through 12 weeks before he got hurt, he was the wide receiver 23. He had 133 targets 2 years ago, 85 through 12 games. So I think he's still the guy. He just may not have those like boom weeks. And Gabe Davis has always been kind of an enigma to me. And I personally don't really see that changing in Jax, especially not adding what I think is like kind of the better version in Brian Thomas Jr. I just think they kind of occupy the same space, but maybe I'm too low on both of their talents. And I'm not watching OTAs.
Hey,
So
dude, it's pretty
so
sweet. You got some nice shorts.
so you got some room there on me, but I really do think they're gonna have some frustrating weeks, like they did last year, with Ridley's inconsistency, like you pointed out. I think he had what 9 drops throughout the season, seven or nine. I have somewhere in there, but he kind of would stall their offense, and I can see that happening with this kind of offense that they're structuring with a rookie that they're potentially going to be relying on, unless Parker Washington does take that spot, and then Gabe Davis being just he just disappears sometimes, and maybe that was a Buffalo thing, and it won't happen in Jacksonville. Uh, and then Christian Kirk is like we talk about it all the time, like he's really really good and he can win you some games, but I don't think he can win you every game, if that makes sense. And like you're saying, Ingram and Etienne should be pretty much where they were. I don't think Evan Ingram's going to lead the team in targets next year, but he's certainly going to be over 100 targets, I would imagine. And then Etienne, I would imagine, gets still around 70-ish. I'm not worried about any Tank Bigsby offseason hype or Dearness Johnson. I
No.
mean, even Robinson, like that's a more fair point to me than either of these other two guys, especially in the passing game.
Yeah.
Um, the problem is, in my opinion, is I think the Jags are probably the third best team in the division. And I just think they might end up losing some games, which can equate to maybe not as good fantasy numbers, but that's where I say like I could easily see the Jags making the playoffs and in front of the Colts or the Texans or vice versa or however. Those three teams are fairly close. I just put them farther back in my
Yeah.
opinion. I think the Colts and the Texans are better. And so that's where my issues lie with the Jags. But no, I'm with you in terms of they have a lot of upside. I think Gabe Davis is obviously going to have some weeks where he goes off for you, and then Brian Thomas Jr. has that kind of same mold. But yeah, I'm interested to see how the Jags go, especially after they paid Trevor Lawrence, and just kind of seeing how that all works out. Um, leading that or that leads us to, I guess, the Tennessee Titans. So they're interesting. They rebuilt their passing attack. They brought in Calvin Ridley, the aforementioned, and they brought in Tyler Boyd, and importantly, they brought in J.C. Latham through the draft to protect Will Levis. So to me, their ranking of 29th in passing attempts last season seems likely to go up. That investment along the line, the investment at wide receiver, the loss of Derrick Henry, and the addition of another pass catching running back, all kind of point to this team finishing in the top 20 in passing attempts. In terms of efficiency, I don't know how that's going to go. You know, Will Levis, and some older wide receivers, we'll see how it goes. But in terms of opportunity, I think they're certainly going to be in the top 20, maybe top 15-ish, just depending how they've talked about the pass catching ability of Tajay Spears and Tony Pollard, and then bringing in two wide receivers along with Hopkins. I think that, like I'm saying, it just kind of points to that. Getting into where that target share is going to go. I mean, you look at Hopkins, his lowest target number in a season he played fully was 137, and that, to be fair, was last season. But like, I just see Hopkins as the top dog there. You were talking about Ridley's like ineffectiveness in the red zone. Hopkins has just proven to be always pretty much effective whenever you need him to be. Um, I did think Hopkins and Ridley's efficiency numbers in terms of like yards per route run and stuff like that would be farther apart, and they weren't as far. I mean, yards per route run, he did have about a half yard on him. Hopkins did, that is, but they weren't as far as apart of us as I expected. But if I have to bet on a 30-year-old wide receiver that's playing in Tennessee or an over 30, I'm gonna do Hopkins over Ridley. So that's my guy there. And I don't know if I dare to say it after touting him all last season, but I think Chig Okonkwo could benefit
Whoa.
from these two um, wide receivers being there. I really do. They did not have a viable target, or at least a consistent viable target outside of DeAndre Hopkins last season. And so I could see Chig getting a like 15 to 20%, not percent, but 15 to 20 target increase, which would put him around the 90s, like mid 90s or 100 or pushing 100. And then I've talked about it all off season, so I don't need to really retread it. But like Tajay Spears, I think is awesome. 4.5 yards per carry, 70 targets we talked about, 7.5 yards per catch. I'm not worried about Tony Pollard. I think, you know, Spears was barely scoring less than Tony Pollard last season as his backup. And I think this offense is going to lend to Spears' talents, his explosive nature and his ability to run after the catch and run with the ball. I think is gonna be nice. It all kind of falls to Will Levis and to see what he can do, but he is a guy who is confident. He's a confident thrower. He's got a strong arm. He's not afraid to get hit, and he'll stand there and try to deliver the pass. So they're going to move the ball. I don't know if they're going to win a lot of games necessarily, but they're going to move the ball, and I think you're going to get some actual fantasy viability out of Tennessee this year.
Yes, agree. They've done everything possible to see what they have in Will Levis. It's all on his shoulders, you know. If he can't
Mhm.
succeed with this setup, then he needs to be replaced.
Mhm.
In my opinion, like you mentioned, the O line's getting upgraded. Um, Yeah, but Ridley, I poo-poo a lot on that, but he was the wide receiver 18 last year. He's
Mhm.
got a lot in the tank. He's able to get in there and make a difference for a quarterback. And now that you've got Hopkins as the red zone superstar, you don't really have to worry about the shortcomings Ridley offers. And then you gotta love Tyler Boyd, man. I
Mhm.
mean, that's like I feel like every NFL team should have been trying to get Tyler Boyd on their squad. That's like him and Tyler Lockett are like the guy that could be successful on any football team, in my opinion. So,
Mhm.
um, you don't have to worry about Treylon Burks anymore and the
Yeah.
inconsistencies there.
Jesus.
So I'm with you on the running back room, man. I mean, like you were saying, Spears was, top 10 in running back targets last year. Like
Mhm.
that's pretty incredible. If he can keep that going. And Pollard obviously is going to be wanting to chip in on that, but I think yeah, you do what you do with Spears because that's what you draft him for. You got a lot of confidence to let Derrick Henry walk. So I'm with that, dude. Chig though, I don't know. I don't know if I can get in on Chig with you, man. He had the usage upgrade, but didn't have the
It's
efficiency.
fair. It's fair.
Um, and it is what it is. I'm excited about that. But this team is probably the most exciting team, like off season wise in this division. Like the Colts didn't do anything as far as like changing the lineup. The Jags we've been through, it's like,
The
yeah, you kind
yeah.
of but I mean, but the Titans, I mean, Jesus, they really got after it. So that's pretty exciting. I'm pumped to see what happens with them. So yeah, I don't know. And then I guess we got fireworks in the sky going on down in Houston.
Yeah, I was about to say they might want to take that crown of the most exciting team of the offseason with the two. They only made two additions really, but those two
Mm,
additions were pretty substantial.
yeah,
And then just the rise of Stroud. But I'll let you take it and you can get into the Texans for us.
the Texans. Yeah, Stroud. I mean, it's all off of Stroud. Like that
Hmm.
rookie year was incredible. Um, I've been talking him up, I like him. I was listening to some AM sports radio and they were talking about like, hey, if the NFL was a movie, you got Stroud in there, competing with Mahomes and like, maybe he takes over. It's like a new era and all this stuff. And I was talking to a guy at work about it, and he's like, "Oh yeah, has he thrown 5,000 for 50 yet? Because that's what Mahomes did his first full year." And I was like, "All right, yeah, we got it." But he did do some incredible things as a rookie. I mean, he seriously only had 5 interceptions. That's the
Hmm.
lowest number for any guy with over 400 dropbacks. So that's incredible as far as like just protecting the ball and being efficient. And that was the whole thing with them. The efficiency was great. And the way he got it done with the 8.2 yards per attempt, that was second amongst all the guys with over 400 dropbacks. And the way he did it was having the deepest A dot, man. That was great as far as it's guys over 400 targets. He was number two, though. If you look guys over 200 targets. Will
Hmm.
Levis, 11.1. He had him beat on the A dot just a little bit there. Um, but yeah, I mean Stroud's incredible, and if he can have any kind of you know improvement off of what he did last year, it's gonna be out of this world. There's only 26 touchdowns. I feel like that number is bound to go up quite a bit. So look for that to happen. Well, yes, 23 through the air and three on the ground. So
Hmm.
26. But
Yeah.
my real thing is well, here we go. You got the big dogs in the house. You got Diggs and you got Mixon. And I'm really looking at Mixon because to me, that's where there's an opportunity for this team to take a big step forward. So they were 12th in passing attempts and 20th in rushing attempts last year, and we've talked about this. I highlighted it on an episode a few weeks ago when I was talking about Devin Singletary, but we've been waiting for this team to step up their rushing numbers. They've had opportunities, they've had backs that were serviceable, but they never really leaned on them. And I feel like Mixon has an opportunity to be that person for this team. But Devin Singletary is leaving behind 216 rush attempts, and that is only 41 fewer than Mixon had last year, and he was the running back six. So I feel like, there's an opportunity for him to still succeed. It's actually more carries than he got in 2022 when he was a running back 10. But we do all know that Mixon is a pretty good pass catching back. So you're going to have to mix a little bit of that in. And who knows if there's really an opportunity for them to do that. But he is pretty good in the red zone. And I think that he's going to make a name for himself and score some of those touchdowns that some of the Texans running backs haven't been doing over the past few years. So pretty excited about that. But I don't know what you do with the squad. Like everybody's into Nico Collins. He just got some crazy money, which was I mean, that's great. Good for him. RDR as a whole has been on Nico since the rookie film. So that feels like a good win for us. And then Tank Dell, I mean, people are fighting about Tank Dell, saying he's a top 20 wide receiver and stuff. And then you throw in Stephon Diggs, who, has been 4 years in the top 10, twice in the top five in the past 4 years. And this guy is, I mean, he's the real deal. You're not going to go in there and make Nico Collins a top five wide receiver when Stephon Diggs is on your squad. He's coming off the wide receiver 9 year. It's not too far removed from the wide receiver 3 year in 2020. I think that this team's going to succeed in a big way, and it's going to go through these pass catchers. Dalton Schultz, let's not sleep on him. Tight end 10 last year. He's got plenty to give. This team is just like animal after animal after animal. And then we can't forget about like Damian Pierce he's probably one of the best backup running backs in the league, not as good as Tony Pollard, who's a backup, just so everybody knows.
Yeah.
But it's just like they have unlimited resources and just a consistency of talent across the board. It's unreal.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong at all. And they made so many swings and they're really all in. And it's going to be interesting to see how this all shakes out. You're looking at their target share last year. Nico Collins had 109. Tank Dell had 75 through 12 weeks. But then you look at Stephon Diggs, like you're saying, and through 6 years, he's only been under 100 targets once, and he's averaged 161 over the last 4 seasons.
Thanks.
So I don't see him falling below 130, probably more likely 140. However, the upside here is the Texans were 12th in passing attempts with 592. So there was already kind of room to spread the ball around. And I think with them being all in, I think they're going to throw the ball more than they did last season. They went out, they got Diggs. Everyone's hyped about Stroud. And I think they want to kind of lean into that. And like what you're saying, they were attacking so much last year with that ADOT and everything that I think they want to lean into that. And so, trying to project out, I don't think 620 attempts is an unreasonable number for the Texans this season. That was exactly the same amount as the Jags last season and less than the Browns. So I don't think that's a crazy amount. And if you look at their percentage spread last year, 61% of their targets went to wide receivers, 34% went to tight ends, and then 12% went to running backs. So if you project that out at 620, that's 378 targets available for wide receivers. So even if you give Stephon Diggs 140, that's 238 to split between Nico Collins, Tank Dell, and then whoever else you want at the tail end.
Robert Woods.
Yeah, whoever. But I think most of it's going to go to Nico and Dell. So I do think that the most effective way to use this offense is to attack with all three of those guys. So I do think they'll all be fantasy viable. I do think Diggs will lead the house. I do think Nico is the 2, and I think Dell is the 3, but I think he's a 3 that can actually be viable for you. And then like you're saying, I don't think that the structure shouldn't move really at all on Dalton Schultz. And if that percentage were to come down with the wide receiver room being new, with the 34% of targets to tight ends, even if that comes down, Dalton Schultz could still keep around 88 targets like he had last season. And then that's even more targets to throw at the wide receiver room. Where I think it's scary for Joe Mixon, in my opinion, and I think there's some warning signs of like a relative flop. I don't think he's going to be terrible, but if you do those percentages that I just did and you keep that up, that's only 74 targets for the running back room as a whole. And so, and for a team that was 20th in rushing attempts, and I'm projecting him to throw even more, like
Mhm.
now we're starting to even more so eat away at those attempts that Joe Mixon's going to get. And then you're saying, like you're saying, Damian Pierce is one of the best backup running backs in the league, so he's got to get his time. So in my opinion, I don't see Mixon as a workhorse, so he's going to have to be uber effective with the chances that he gets, which he can. We've seen him do it in the NFL. Like you're saying, he didn't have a ton of carries a couple of years ago or even last season necessarily, but he can do it. But I'm worried about how many chances Mixon is going to actually get with just how much I think they're going to try to attack downfield.
Yeah, I'm with you. I just think it comes down to scoring. That's something he's never had a problem with, getting
That's
in the end
fair.
zone.
Yeah, yeah. Once they're in the red zone for sure. Yeah, I don't think he'll be bad necessarily, but I think that there is a wave of people or a wave of thinking that Mixon is like this sleeper RB that can like really take it up and be like an RB2. And I don't know that I
Oh
see
no,
that. Like
no.
I don't really see that. I see like a 3 or a 4 and with some good weeks. But I feel
Yeah.
like he might be fairly touchdown dependent at this stage of his career, just
Well,
with
now,
all the features of that offense that are going to be going
now you got me really interested in seeing a few things about Mixon's value, man.
on.
I mean, not to just keep dragging this conversation out, but
No, you're good. You're good.
I feel like I want to know now. I want to know on the I'm getting some I'm jumping on the keep trade cut. I always got it queued up, so it should come up pretty quick here. But Mixon is rolling out at let's see. Oh, I'm gonna do a little quiz here. We're gonna definitely cut no Odell Beckham Jr., baby. So yeah, all right. They're putting Mixon at the running back 19. So it goes Jacob, Swift, Henry, Mixon, and then it goes Zamir White, Blake Corum, David Montgomery, and then Ramondre Stevenson is 23, which Ramondre just got paid, and that I thought
Yeah.
that contract was like healthy
Yeah, it
uh
was.
for me, but right, so Mixon at 19, you've got okay, and call me crazy. I know we're all thinking I am crazy, but you've got Alvin Kamara 1 year older than him at the RB 27. I think I'm more likely Kamara to be consistent
Yeah,
in his production than
I agree.
Mixon. So take that same trade offer from Mixon and go to Kamara, who's
Yeah.
yeah, just doing it in the passing game, just crushing, 1,000 all purpose every day for breakfast. So
hmm
okay, well shit. That's fun to talk about.
Well, all right. That wraps us up, I think, on the AFC South. So, going into next week, we were actually going to do a coaching episode, like a coaching breakdown, and we forgot basically
Yeah.
and started the divisional stuff. So it's going to be a little out of sequence. We wanted to set the coaching thing and kind of go into the divisional talk so we could reference it. But so next week we're going to do some we're going to do some coaching talk, and then we're going to hit the divisional back. And I'm not sure which division we're going to hit, but hopefully you guys are enjoying this. Let us know if you're a fan of one of these teams. Let us know what you think. But until then, we've been Rough Draft Research. You've been the audience, and we'll see you next time.
Goodbye, everybody.